And now, here's your host of Shaping Success, Wes Tankersley.
What is up, everyone? Welcome to Shaping Success Morning Coffee with myself and Robert Watson. Robert is a friend of mine that I have known for 2-3 years now. And
that's right.
We've been kind of just going back and forth. Robert has a book out called Art is Victorious, What Makes Life Better. And I've always talked about what's making life better and what can you do to make your life better and how can we make things better for ourselves. Because a lot of times we get lost in those things. And one of the things that I've been doing to make my life better is have a little bit of Magic Mind. We talked about this last week. They have reached out to me and asked me if I wanted to get a free sample of their stuff. And I took it, and it was kind of crazy because it's a really good drink. Has some lion's mane in it, has good for energy. And it's not like coffee. Where it kind of dies out because I drink a lot of coffee, as we talked about last week. I think we talked about how I have almost a damn near cup of coffee, or a pot of coffee a day. My wife gets like 1 or 2 cups out of the 14 cups that I make. So,
Well, mine is actually iced coffee.
Iced coffee, very nice. Some good stuff too. But this is a little bit different. This actually kind of like, I don't know about you, but I lose that coffee. Kind of loses it. I end up having, I don't know, probably 12 cups of coffee, one of these Magic Minds, and a Red Bull. But I've noticed that I don't need the Red Bull usually when I take this, and it kind of lasts pretty good. So good stuff. If you want to get your own, head over to magicmind.com/Wes Tanker. Head over to magicmind.com/WesT20 to get a discount on your subscription.
Love it. Hi, Nikki.
Cheers to you. So, Robert, we kind of just riff here. This is kind of one of the cool things about Monday is you and I talk about, we think about our week, we go through our week, and just kind of try to find those things that motivate us, think about the things that we do, then we kind of write stuff down and be like, hey, that's a good topic. That's something that we can talk about. So we were talking before, what is the subject of today's talk that you wanted to bring up?
Well, this quote has been sticking in my mind for probably about 2 weeks, and it is, we can't win until we stop losing. And that, from a sports analogy, is really, really simple. You have habits that you do as a team, right, that create your losses, kind of self-sabotage. And until you stop self-sabotaging yourself as a team, you can't win. And that is not a whole lot different than us as individuals, right? That we have habits. We want to be successful at certain things, but we have these habits that sabotage our success, right? Whatever they might be. For example, that we want to get up and do morning podcasts, but we can't seem to go to sleep at night, right? And so then we end up with no sleep for our podcast. So again, what we are is we're sabotaging ourselves. Our sleep hygiene goes all over the place. And so that's what you're trying to do. We're all trying to do is we're trying to build a formula for success. And that formula of success is really to stop. Because if we were doing the right things, we'd already be winning.
Right.
So what we're always trying to do is we're trying to get rid of the habits that are getting in our way, right, of our success, whatever they may be. And so then we have to just kind of go through them, each and individual one, as we see how they're pulling us or holding us back. And that really has stuck with me because as I wrote this first book, this is what makes life better. But my other side of the equation is okay, now that we know what makes life better, how do we go from better to some form of excellence, right? What do we need to do to be a little bit better at what we do? And when we realize, and I love this graph, everybody's seen this graph of like a hockey stick, right? Where it's just going along real, real slow, and then all of a sudden it shoots up, right?
Yeah.
And that's how people perceive success. For example, I love this actor who finally hit it big, Rebecca Ferguson. So she hit it big in Mission Impossible, and then she did a few other things. But the reality is her joke was, oh yeah, I'm wildly successful. It only took me 20 years to become wildly successful, right? In other words, 20 years of consistency, 20 years of trying to do the right thing. Right. Kind of like the farmer. The farmer, when he sows his seeds, he doesn't get a crop immediately, right? You don't throw your seeds one day, get a crop the next. It is part of a process of building, and that you end up, your success ends up looking like a hockey stick. In other words, as we're going along that bottom here, we're adding, we're being consistent, being consistent, being consistent, being consistent, getting rid of bad habits, and all of a sudden, boom, up we go.
Yeah.
And that's that dramatic impact.
I think one of the things that we, that people who are successful remember too is that we have to sit here and go, we're going to continue to be no matter what. Like the consistency that you're talking about will reap the benefits of what it is, but it doesn't mean that there's not going to be those things in the way that stop you and make you think that the consistency is not good, right? I think
Exactly.
about this usually in my daily routine. Like I've been in this situation where there's this great book. I can't remember who wrote it, but it's called Who Moved My Cheese? But my cheese is moved all the time, right? Like people are taking it and resetting the boundary for what I need to do for me, whether it be how I get paid, whether it be the leads I get, whether it be whatever it is. Like the boundaries are always being moved for me. And the funny thing is I always trend up. It doesn't matter what you do to me. I'm going to go up because I refuse to allow those limitations to stop me from doing my job the way that I need it to be done. So it's kind of crazy. You have that choice, right? They stick those limitations on you so you can either just allow them to piss you off and ruin your day, or you can keep moving forward, right?
One of the things that you also get caught on, and we broached this last time, was age, right?
Yep.
So you're going along. My streak of running is sitting north of 9.5 years, right? Well, no year has been the same.
Right.
Literally no year has been the same. And every year, unfortunately, I have aged too, right? So I've taken a little tread off the tire every year, whether we like it or not.
Yep.
Taking a little tread off the tire. So I've adjusted to what? Storms, all these kind of things that you're constantly adjusted to. And then the thing that life is doing, kind of slowly but surely, kind of pulling the rug out from underneath me as far as physical limitations. In other words, do I really I can run a 7-minute mile. Do I really want to run a 7-minute mile anymore?
Yeah.
Is that really the best thing for me?
Is it necessary?
What works for me? Exactly. What works for me? I mean, I can do it just like one of the guys made a great comment I saw the other day that 95% of all people never sprint after the age of 40.
Mm-hmm.
They never sprint.
Right.
And I had to think about that. Well, I have, of course, but I had to think about that and then realize, wow, that's really probably true for 95% of the people. They will never sprint again.
Yep.
Why? Well, there's no demand for it, right? They've gotten rid of all those sports by that time that require sprinting, and you're just like, okay, this is really interesting how we change. Again, as kids, we're really playful and fun. Everything's kind of open to us. As we get older and older into adulthood, things change and we change.
Right.
But the question is, do we have to? I mean, can I still sprint? Sure. One of the things I learned about sprinting, though, was it takes a toll on my body.
Yeah.
Right? The pounding of sprinting, not the best for me. Can I do it? Sure. Do I do it? On occasion, yeah. But, I don't do it as much because of the pounding.
Right.
I want to extend my career. And the thing about me is I don't have the luxury of injuries. Mm-hmm. There's no day off for me. You don't do that. So I run through injuries.
Right. Yeah,
so I've got to be careful. Yeah.
It's funny because you said you don't ever sprint, and I'm starting thinking of a couple things that I've said before, and Nikki's talking about, like, I don't sprint unless something's chasing me. And I thought, I hate running. And I don't run unless, like I've said on TikTok before, I'm like, if a bear's chasing me, I'm not running. I don't care. I'm just going to let him catch me. But the reality of that is when your 2-year-old's got a pair of scissors in his hands and he's running around the house, you're sprinting. And I find myself doing that a lot more lately.
Yeah. Or when he gets ready to stick something in the wall socket.
Oh, man. He did that this weekend, and luckily it wasn't anything that could shock him. But I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? He's got this little pull dog. It's got a little string on it, and as its wheels kind of go whatever, it looks like the dog's kind of walking. I walk around the corner, and he's got the string stuck inside the light socket. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? You can't turn your head a minute on these little guys, or they'll do something that you never thought they would.
And isn't it funny because they used to always say, and I've heard this many times, that really young kids are for really young parents.
Yeah.
Older parents are like, "What are you doing? Hold on, let me get up. My hips hurt."
Yeah, we all know that I was not planning this, but it happened, and I'm rolling with the punches. But it is. It's like
Yeah.
one of those things. It's my wife last night. She's she works. She's a nurse, and so she works 12-hour shifts, and sometimes they're 3 days in a row. Sometimes it's every other day. Sometimes it's it's all sporadic. But she has 3 in a row, and so she's on the third one. But Friday, I decided to teach my daughter. I thought, my daughter wanted to go to this party, and the lady, really cool party. She had a lot of fun, but the idea was, all right, let's give your kids some money. Let's let them. And so my thought was like, I'm not going to give you money. I'm going to let you earn money so you can help your mom clean the house. You can help me do some stuff outside. You can do this and that, whatever. And then they went out and they had a little sushi date, which I thought was hilarious because there's no way she was going to ever eat sushi. And she still thinks she ate sushi, but she didn't really eat sushi. They have the little kid sushi, kind of like the chicken nugget sushi or whatever. So she had that, and then they went to the mall and hung out, and then they went back and they painted or whatever. But part of going to the mall was she needed her own money. So my idea was, hey, we just had some curbing installed in the front of the house. They cut out some lawn. There's some exposed dirt. We have a couple rock piles. We need to add some rocks. And I'm like, tell her I'll pay her $20 if she goes in and she fills in the areas with the rocks. And I thought, oh, this will be pretty simple. She can take a couple of Nolan's little sand buckets and just go in there and fill it in piece by piece. And so I'm thinking, oh, that won't take too long. She'll get it done. It'll be fine. Well, I call my wife. I get done with work. Hey, what's going on? She goes, I'm out here putting rock in the beds. And I'm like, what? I said, I thought I told Tatum to do that. She goes, well, she started to do it, this and that, blah, blah, blah. So I like, okay, so I'm going to give her $20 to do this turned into you doing it for her. I'm like, what the hell? So, it's kind of the way it goes though now, like you have to be willing. And she just got tired and she couldn't do it. And she this and that and blah, blah, blah. Next thing you know, here we are doing the job that we set forth for our children to do. And
yeah, a friend of mine was doing that last night, was talking about laundry, right? Teaching their children to do laundry. Mm-hmm. And we were talking about balance in life, balance in relationships. And, what you're balancing is with your kids is what you do for them and what you teach them to do for themselves. Right. So you're always balancing that. And sometimes that balance is way out of balance. So you find yourself as a parent issuing some motivational rhetoric would be the nicest way of putting it.
Right.
Where the middle names are used, right?
Yep. The funny thing about this whole thing is, like, last night we're laying in bed and she's still talking about how damn sore she is from moving those rocks. And it's like, that's where we're at, right? Here we are.
Right.
So you get up, at 43, it's a little bit different than what I would have been at like 23. But every time I do something around the yard, it's like, I was thinking about it this morning, pouring my coffee, my shoulder pops, and it's like, so it's amazing that you can continue to do that and make those adjustments, because that's what we do, right? We figure out a way to make it happen.
Right. And that is about the process of stop losing before you can win, right?
Right.
You've got to stop losing, and the losing habits. One of the ones that stuck to me was, you have a mindset, and in my mindset, quitting is not an option.
Right.
So you just simply say, okay, now we just got to figure it out. And I got criticized for being stubborn in working a problem.
Right.
And I just said, I understand. My friend said, well, why are you being so stubborn with it? I said, well, you don't understand that stubbornness has saved my life numerous times, right? Because when you start having a problem, you have an engine out, your parachute malfunctions, whatever.
Right.
You work the problem. Why? Well, your option is dying. So you work the problem, you work the problem, and you work the problem till the problem's solved.
Right.
And so that creates a little tenacity in you to work the problem. Well, when you're around kind of what I call normal people, right? Who are like, well, you tried 3 times. Yeah, come on, give up. And I'm like, not my world.
Yeah, I love that. Like, I think that's a great thing to think about. I mean, obviously it's kind of taking it a little bit to the extreme, like if you really think about it. But the fact of the matter is that if you think of it, well, I mean, it goes along with that. What if this was your last day on Earth? Would you be satisfied with the fact that you didn't do what you set out to do because you gave up? Or would you continue to do it until you couldn't do it anymore? And if you think about that, like, this is a life or death situation, no matter what it be. I'm sink or swim, and that's kind of where I've taken it. Like with this situation that I've had with this house, it's like it's sink or swim. I have two opportunities. My cheese has been moved again, like we talked about.
Yeah.
And so what do? Do I let that movement stop me, or do I continue? And I know what I need. How am I going to get what I need in order to survive?
Right. And truthfully, quitting, you can't fail until you stop trying.
Right.
It's impossible. It was interesting, again, sports analogy, right? Michael Jordan said, "I never lost a basketball game."
Uh-huh.
Have you ever heard this quote? He said, "I never lost a basketball game. I just ran out of time."
I'm sure I've heard that, but that makes complete sense with him. And it's funny, he's in the news right now. We'll talk about that in a minute. But yeah, I mean, you ran out of time. So what does he do? Like when he ultimately decided that he retired, that was it, right? That was the end of it. But did he reach those goals that he was looking for and stop running out of time?
Right. Well, I think for him, it was about, being competitive, constantly being competitive. And that's what we're all trying to do in life's competition, is we're just trying to be competitive. And
right.
I think also too, I caught some criticism for being what someone felt was competitive. And I said, I stopped competing with other people probably in college.
Right.
I compete with myself, and I've been competing with myself. And what you see is me working the problem. It is not me competing with you. Right. I don't even pay attention to the fact that you're in this situation. I'm just working the problem. I don't get competitive. It's not about me winning or losing. It's about myself. When I go out every morning, I don't run against time or somebody else's last TikTok. I run on mine, right, with my goal in mind of sustainability, because I can't run just for, hey, let me go get the best time. I got to be sustainable. I got to be able to go get a good time for the next 10 years, not a good time for the next 10 minutes.
Yeah. And
so it changes your planning horizon.
And I think that's one of the things that made this, we've talked about this switch that I've had for the last 4 or 5 years. Like the first couple of years, it was like the cheese movement thing for me was kind of a pain in the ass, because it meant that someone else was getting something that I wasn't getting, or their circumstances are different than mine or whatever. But I always land at the same thing. Like I've always busted my ass and I've always landed at the same dollar amount. But my goal is for me to have a bigger paycheck than I've had before, because I am 100% commissioned, to always try and get a bigger one. And when I get that bigger one, and when I catch it, I'm going to do this. And then I get these, and then you get the person from the behind. Well, that was when it was this way, and that was when it was this way, and that was when it was this way. And it's like, I don't care. It doesn't matter. You can take that situation and you can change it on me as many times as you want. I'm going to land at something higher than what it was. I'm going to land. My goal is for me to be better every single year. And that's what it is. Every single month, every single day. And it doesn't always happen, but I've decided that I'm going to do everything I possibly can and adjust every possible way that I can to make myself a success myself. And then
exactly.
My question for you is like, what happens for you? Because obviously, again, like what I like about this is we're generations apart, we're ages apart, you're a little bit older than me. I'm in this situation, but what do you do when people, what do you personally do when people, like, you self-compare to yourself, right? Trying to be better, but what happens when someone goes, well, you're different than this person? How do you handle that situation? Like when they say, well, you're not as successful as so-and-so. And in your mind, you're automatically going to, well, I'm a competitor, so what does this person do different? Or how do you handle that situation with that comparison?
Yeah, I mean, that's always been I used to play basketball on a regular basis with former NBA players, right? Mm-hmm. And so the idea for me in competition was to be the best me, was to improve my game. I wasn't going to be as good as them. Mm-hmm. And that was okay with me. Because I wasn't an NBA quality player. I was a college quality player. I was very accepting of my limitations. And I think that's where we differ from being competitive and accepting our limitations. our limitations are exactly the way they're imposed. For example, my quote this morning was planning was not about the future. It was about today's actions in the future, right?
Yeah.
And so my competitiveness with running is not checking someone else's time. My competitive with running is to get a good sweat, get my heart rate up, and realize that I have to sustain this into my 60s and my 70s to do the next decade. So my goal in competition is completely different. That person out there running, they may quit running tomorrow.
Right.
I don't even know what their goals are. I don't even know what measurement stick they're using. All I know is this in this situation, this is my goal. On a basketball court, it's simple, right? I just want to be competitive,
Right.
right? Being competitive means that I'm just not going to get run over. Now, that doesn't mean, especially at this age, the running joke was, can I still dunk? And the answer is sure. But the problem is not going up that's the problem. It's coming down, right?
Yeah.
And people are like looking at me like, what do you mean coming down? I said, hitting the ground. You do not realize how that feels at this age, right? And sure, could I show off and do that? Sure. To what end?
Yeah.
Right. Inside my limitations of inside this body, I'm like, that's okay. But here's the things I can do well. And so that's kind of some of it is, what can I do well? And I want to showcase that. The things that I can't do well for a variety of reasons, do the best I can with those.
Good morning, Carl. Hey, thanks, guys, for joining us on this edition of Morning Coffee. Robert and I have been doing this for a while now. We just started. This is our second Monday that we are doing this live, and we're starting to do it on TikTok every morning. So if you're hanging out with us, please make sure that you subscribe. You hit the button so that you know that we're on. You can check it out on YouTube, Shaping Success with Wes Tankersley. I had to laugh when we were talking about Michael Jordan, Robert, because when you said, can I still dunk? I remember that interview. I don't know if you've seen it. I think it was Jay Leno. He said, hey, can you still dunk? And Jordan looks over at Leno and goes, are you stupid? Of course I can still dunk.
Yeah.
I think one of the cool things about Jordan also is that he, like, if you've watched The Last Dance or you read his book or you listen to, some of the things that he's done, he's, no matter what he's doing, he's always trying to find a way to be competitive because that's what keeps him going. And he's either, gambling. Like, everyone is like, why is he such a big gambler? And him and Charles Barkley, because I just listened to Charles Barkley's book, was like they were gambling all the time. Like, they were doing something to be competitive because it kept that going. And I don't necessarily know that he was addicted to gambling, but I think he's just addicted to competing. I mean, that's one of those things that you just see, and that addiction to competition to be the best that you can no matter what. It can be an amazing thing.
Well, it's nice to have the physical ability, and at least in football, I've always had it, the physical ability to turn it up when I need to.
Right.
And I do have another gear and I have another way to play at another level. And that's wonderful. I do realize that at certain times your body is going to get in the way of you. And it was interesting because I was listening to something Tom Brady was saying, and I know that he's still capable of playing at the NFL level, right?
Right.
But I know he knows that he's playing at 90% of who he was, say, a couple of years ago.
Right.
Right. And so I don't think he wants to play at 90% anymore.
No.
I think that's probably where his head is I don't want to play at 90%. It's really hard. I don't know about you, but it took me a decade after I quit playing football to get over the feeling of the fall.
Yeah.
And the fact that I wasn't on the field, the fact that I wasn't doing something, that took a while. It also the same thing when I go around a basketball court, right? I mean, I look at a basketball court. I don't look at a basketball court the same way. I look at it as, wonder what I could do, right?
Yeah.
How much fun would that be? Because, I mean, I grew up on that stuff, right? Since I was a little kid.
Yeah, and it's funny, like, I found myself getting stuck in these other things. Like, football was a big thing for me because obviously I was good at it. But I enjoyed baseball so much more. And I also realized that I was decent at basketball, but I missed it so much. It was so funny when I was a PE teacher. Like, there was nothing I'd rather do than get in the middle of a basketball class and play with those kids, just prove to them how much different it is, how good I was, whatever. And they were always surprised because I always beat them. But it's easy to beat kids this day and age because basketball is so different now than it was then. And they think of, if I make a 3-point shot, I'm going to make 3, right? And I think of, if I make 2 layups, I'm going to beat your 3-pointer. So all I got to do is make 2 layups to your 3-pointer. I can shoot a 3-pointer if I need to, but the probability of that going in is a lot less than me making a layup. So stop me underneath.
Well, and we were laughing because, of course, in my time, the game was a lot more physical, right?
Right.
You know, they don't let you. It's the same thing with football. They don't let you impact people like they did in our day, right? They don't let you take a quarterback, hit him under the chest, right, and drive him into the ground after he's thrown the ball.
Right.
They didn't in my generation. I mean, you were going down irregardless. I mean, you know, 2, 3, 4 steps, doesn't matter. He's going to hit you. He's going to keep going. And so it does change the game. And and I hope for them it reduces their injuries. But the reality is that it's a different game.
Yeah, 100%. It's crazy that, and that's, I think, part of the thing. As we were talking about Brady, I kind of think that that's part of it too. How long can you go on with like the Brady rules or whatever, the Manning rules or whatever? You know, those guys were able to make it so that they didn't get hit, and because they knew that if they did it into their career, so what can they do to stop that from happening? And now it's a different game, right? Just like basketball.
Absolutely.
I was watching the WNBA gal. Caitlin Clark's a big thing right now, where they're talking about how she's just this. Everyone thinks she's just this, I don't know, pariah or whatever, the savior of the WNBA, which is pissing a bunch of these other people off. And I was watching this gal dribble a basketball yesterday. I'll have to see if I can find a clip. Someone sent it, but she pushed it down, grabbed it with this hand, pushed it over to this hand, and dribbled again. And it's like, who taught this kid how to dribble that way? And why did she just get away with it? It's insane, the things that they allow to happen. The traveling, like, we're going to take 3 or 4 steps without dribbling, and it's okay. Like, there's all these things that happen that when you go back and you look at how physical the game was, it is not physical anymore. Like, you can't, like, and that's why these guys can get these 3-pointers off, because if you get in their face and you foul them, they can shoot, you know, they'll get 2 shots.
Yep. Oh, it was funny because back in the day in high school, we weren't allowed to dunk.
Mm-hmm.
Dunking came after me. So the dunking was done in warm-ups just to let people know that you could, right? When the refs were not on the floor yet, because if they saw you in warm-ups, they'd get you too. But, you know, in the warm-ups, we'd at least do it so that we had some fun. But, yeah, it wasn't allowed.
Well, Robert, it's been a great topic. Appreciate it. Thank you guys for hanging out with us. Please make sure that you subscribe over on TikTok, on Instagram, wherever you get the podcast stuff, or, you know, just hang out with us on TikTok. We will be back Wednesday going over the chapter in the book. We're getting through this thing. I didn't look at the chapter. I always look at the chapter the day of, so there you go. But come hang out with us. Make sure you follow Robert. Make sure you follow myself. And have an awesome day. If you want to grab some of that Magic Mind, head over to magicmind.com/WestT20 and use code WestT20 at checkout to get yourself 20% off your subscription. Till next time, I challenge you to find the shape of your success.